Meytrix, what class are you gonna play? I'm gonna play the strongest one. Meytrix, what class should I play? I can't tell you that one, but if you're interested in what class has the biggest potential to get to the top of the leaderboards, I can tell you that. You may be asking, who are you to tell me what's the best class to play in PvP? I've been playing Cataclysm since 2014, which makes it just around 8 years now. I guess you can't find too many people that have been playing the same expansion for that long. I've got 2,800 rating in 2v2 as an Unholy Death Knight. I've got 2,600 rating in 2v2 as a Retribution Paladin. I've got 2,500 rating in 2v2 as an Arms Warrior. I've got the Arena Master title and 2,225 rating in 3v3 as Retribution Paladin. I was rank 1 Unholy Death Knight for years on Twin Star. I'm multiple rank 1 Arms Warrior. So that's a little bit about me and my background and why you might be interested in listening to my opinion. But keep in mind, this is just my opinion. All this data comes from my experience, while somebody else might have a different experience and may argue with me and give different points to why certain spec should be listed higher or lower in my tier list. I'm always happy to listen to other people's opinions and their feedback. But without further ado, let's dive into it. This tier list comprises all melee classes and how they stack up in PvP environment. That means 1v1, duels, 2v2, 3v3 arena, rated and non-rated battlegrounds. What composition they're playable in, how high on the leaderboards can they get. And starting off, we have a Retribution Paladin. Now, Retribution Paladin is one of the easier classes to play. Doesn't have that much of a skill cap compared to other classes. Can do insane amounts of damage, especially in its burst windows with Avenging Wrath and Zealotry. And has the best healing in the game out of all DPS classes. Sometimes even fighting with the healer specs. It has incredible amount of support with Hand of Freedom, Hand of Protection, Hand of Sacrifice. It can dispel roots and diseases off of himself with Cleanse. Can win 1v1 against almost every class. It is extremely viable in 2v2 arena. You can play it with a healer or double DPS. It can pretty much play in any double DPS composition. It is extremely good in 3v3, and it's decent in battlegrounds where it serves the purpose of supporter. Usually you have to track other teammates' HP, help with the healing if necessary. So overall, Retribution Paladin is a very solid choice, and most people would even call it overpowered, which I have to agree with, and that's why I'm giving it S tier. Arms Warrior, however, is a different story. Arms Warrior have been nerfed after Wrath of the Lich King, and nerfed big time. Arms Warrior is a tunnel class. It specializes on big damage on single target, and it can deal insane amount of damage. However, it is easily kited, easily slowed and rooted by most of the classes. And so, most of the time, you find yourself as an Arms Warrior just really frustrated by the lack of mobility. That's why Arms Warriors usually play in 2v2 with a healer who can dispel them. However, I used to play Arms Warrior with Retribution Paladin in 2v2, and we got around rank 15 on Rootless Season. So that was quite an achievement, and I was the highest rated Arms Warrior. So Arms Warriors in 1v1 are one of the worst classes overall. Can't beat almost anything in 1v1 unless the other player sucks. 2v2, decent if you play with a good healer of any kind, or with a Retribution Paladin or Marksmanship Hunter if you want to win quickly on burst and crowd control from the Hunter. It's playable in 2v2 as well. 3v3 pretty decent, good for Cataclysm or KFC especially, but doesn't have any use in rated or non-rated battlegrounds. Pretty much is a shit class that doesn't provide the party with anything. There are definitely much better choices for battlegrounds as far as specs go. And so for this, I would give Arms Warrior into the B tier. Fury Warrior is basically a weaker Arms Warrior. The only time when they deal damage is in their burst window with Death Wish and Recklessness. Other than that, they don't do really much. They lose on the Mortal Strike effect. However, they do have a talent which provides them with something similar, although weaker than the Arms Warrior's Mortal Strike. In every aspect, Fury Warrior is a lot worse than Arms Warrior, especially in 2v2 and 3v3 arena. Is pretty much completely useless spec. That's why I give it C tier. Unholy Death Knight. Death Knights are super strong on Cataclysm, especially Unholy Death Knights. Super strong for 1v1, can deal with almost any class. The only problem you're gonna have is with rogues and ferals in 1v1. Other than that, you smoke pretty much everybody. 2v2, super viable with healers or with red or marksmanship hunter, much like Arms Warrior. Unholy DK is played in a very similar comps that Arms Warrior would be. Just Unholy DK is like Arms Warrior on steroids. And it's even good for battlegrounds, spreading dots, doing big amounts of damage. Unholy Death Knight, good overall in every aspect, deserves to be in the S tier. Frost Death Knight is a little bit weaker compared to the Unholy. Frost Death Knights are much squishier, however they have a lot better AoE damage. They do big hits. They have more defensive cooldowns than Arms Warriors on a shorter cooldown. Overall, I think Frost DKs are a little bit better in most situations than Warriors. Plus, they're super good for battlegrounds, especially as far as their damage goes. I would put Frost Death Knights into the A tier. Enhancement Shamans. Super squishy, even squishier than Frost Death Knights. They can deal big chunks of damage. They have good support with their healing capabilities. They're pretty good in 1v1, decent in 2v2. But the only comps that it can play in 2v2 are basically with a Retribution Paladin and or Discipline Priest. In 3v3 can be played in Turbo Cleave, and they're pretty much useless in battlegrounds. Overall decent class, but they're definitely a lot better choices. That's why I give it B. Rogues. Rogues are one of the most overpowered classes on Cataclysm, especially on 4.3.4 with Dragon Souls and the legendary daggers and the PvE trinkets. Rogues are totally destroying everyone. If you don't believe me, check out one of my latest videos. You'll see rogues totally demolishing everyone in seconds just with the help of the PvE trinkets. They're the king of 1v1. They're extremely good in 2v2 with almost any spec. They work almost in every composition in 2v2. They're extremely good in 3v3, also viable in RLS, RMP, and a bunch of different comps, even triple DPS. Extremely good for battlegrounds, ninja capping flags, defending, S tier, definitely. Different story with the assassination rogues. which are basically worse than subtlety in every single aspect. They have less crowd control, they have less burst, and overall, since there's the subtlety spec, there's no reason to play assassination at all. So that's C tier. And last, combat rogue. Combat is totally unplayable pretty much. It's a fun spec to play, I guess, for some people, if you have fun losing. Same story as assassination, C tier. And the last melee spec on the list is a feral druid. Feral druid are the most mobile class of all. They have a shit ton of crowd control, great support, great damage, especially from Rootless Season onwards. They're extremely viable in 2v2, can be played with healer or a DPS. Extremely viable in 3v3 and in a bunch of different comps. The king of 1v1, much like subtlety rogue, and they're the best flag carriers for battlegrounds by far. So I think that's deserving of S tier. So this is my tier list. Of course, the specs and their viability in PvP changes throughout the different content patches. We have classes that do benefit from PvE gear more than the others, but overall, this is how they would stack up in my head. The best melee PvP specs you could play on Cataclysm being Retribution Paladin, Unholy Death Knight, Subtlety Rogue, and Feral Druid. The other specs are just nowhere near. That doesn't mean you cannot get to the top of the leaderboards as an Arms Warrior or Enhancement Shaman. There definitely have been exceptions over the years. I know a couple people that were able to get to top 20 with an Arms Warrior, including myself. I do know like 2 people that have been able to be in top 10 with an Enhancement Shaman. But as I say, these are mostly exceptions. You definitely see a bunch of Retribution Paladins at the top, Unholy Death Knights, Rogues, and Ferals. If you have a different opinion about this, about which classes are better than the others in PvP environment, let me know down in the comments. If I forgot to mention something important, or you want to know which compositions are the best to play with a certain spec, ask me in the comments, and thanks for watching.